Welcome back to China Economy and Society. Today we continue talking about the second pillar of Chinese economic success, which is the demographic control of the population. China has succeeded at keeping the population low, which has helped the ratio of GDP per capita to remain relatively low, relatively high. China has increased the GDP through economic reform. That has been very good, but has also kept the denominator of this equation relatively low, so that the ratio has grown. And at the end of the day, this is what we care most, the average wealth per citizen. However, the demographic policy have had some advantages, but also some disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is the so-called demographic pyramid is getting a little bit unstable. What is the demographic pyramid? It shows the proportion of people that belong to each age group. So if we look, for example, at this lower end of the pyramid, this is the proportion of children in China between 0 and 5 years old. As we move up, the age band grows up to 100 years and older. So what do we see here? In China today, 2017, there is a large part of the population that belongs to the 40, 50, 55 years old. The problem is that if we look at the other chart in 2050, 25 years from now, there will be an even higher proportion of old people. And the proportion of young people, which is the base of this pyramid, becomes smaller and smaller. Normally, what we want to see like a Christmas tree. We want to have a large base at the bottom. These are the young people that over time will get older and will enter the workforce. In the case of China, in 2050, we may have a demographic problem because the number of young people here is not going to be enough to move up and create a large workforce in the following years. And this creates, amongst other problems, how to fund pension for the old people. So the problem of aging population is now becoming very important in China. How do we compare this with Italy? In Italy, the problem is the same, but worse. The pyramid in Italy already shows a very, very thin base here. The number of young people here is already not very large. If we go and look at what's going to happen in 2050, rather than being a Christmas tree, it's almost an inverted Christmas tree with a lot of old people in the higher age brackets. And this is a little bit of a disaster, as we know in Italy and in other European countries, for the funding of pensions for the old people. Another way to look at this demographic problem is to look at the ratio, the old dependency ratio, which is defined as the number of old people divided by the number of people who belong to the workforce. So people in the age bracket between 15 and 64 years old. Number of old people is normally higher than 64 years old. What does this ratio tell us? This ratio, if it goes down, it tells us that the demographic structure of the country is stable and sustainable. If this ratio were to go up, it will tell us the number of old people grow faster than the number of people in the working age, and that would create imbalances. So what has happened? In China, in 1950, this ratio was about 10%, and then over time has been going up, and this has been the worry of policymakers in China. Here in 2010, the ratio has now, is expected going forward to peak and grow in 2060 to reach a peak of 55% for China. This is a very high number, but if we look then at Italy, the situation is even worse. Italy was also at 10% in the 50s, but the ratio has been growing faster and more steeper over time. It's expected that in 2050 it will reach a peak of 65%. So for every 100 people who work, there will be 65 people in Italy who are old and of course do not work and need to be supported through a transfer of funds from those who work through pension contribution to the old people. This is a big problem. The problem for Italy is worse than China for two main reasons. One is because the peak is higher, so the ratio is worse for Italy. And second, the problem for Italy is earlier in time because we already now have a high ratio. And so the problem is here in Italy and it will be later for China. So this is good news. Despite looking bad, it's good because this gives, and I want to be optimistic for once in this videocast, this is an opportunity. Because Italy, having a bigger problem than China, can actually teach something to China. Or flipping it from the other round, China probably has an interest to learn from how other European countries have or are solving the problem now, their problem which is bigger than China. From a social and cultural point of view, China in a way has an internal mechanism that solves this problem. In China, most young people do save part of the salary and they pass it on to the parents. A sign of gratitude, a sign of respect. The family ties are very strong in China, much more than in Italy. They probably are as strong now in China as they were in Italy in the 1950s. My fear is that the Italian family tissue has already broken up in Italy, and maybe Italy can also learn from China. If Italian children were a little bit less selfish and behave a little bit like Chinese children that save part of the salary and give it back to the parents, at the same time we will have a solution, two birds with one stone. The financial funding of a pension would be alleviated by this transfer of funds from young people to old people. And from a social point of view, we will have more cohesivity in the family structure of Italian families. Of course, we have another problem that with high young unemployment in Italy, young people in Italy need to first find a job and then take some of this money and pass it on to the parents. Again, everything is interconnected. But today, I want to conclude on a positive note, re-emphasizing the business opportunity. Anyone in Europe or in Italy that deals with how to fund pensions, any expert in demography, there is an opportunity in China. But please do get paid. This is precious advice China needs, other countries around the world may need. Do not give our experience, do not turn our problem into a cheap solution, make it worth it. So do come to China, there's an opportunity, but make sure you gain money out of your advice. Thank you very much and goodbye.